Alright, fellow zombies, part 2 on this madcap rant I've got. Diary of the Griever named John Weaver, which is me, dealing with things right now for Friday the 13th, 2026. And it's a little after 5 o'clock in the morning, West Coast time. We're talking about the SAVE Act on how the federal government is interfering more and more with voting registrations. They want power, they want control, they want information to lie, cheat, steal, manipulate, and rob people blind. They want money, but they also want information and see who's. And if you're not part of them, you're the enemy of the state. They're doing the same shit in Russia. I mean, they're doing the same shit like they did in Russia, which is we want all the paperwork, we want all the verification, and we're going to put you through the scrutiny because we are the government and we say so. And at this point, they want people to use the real ID, which I tried to explain in the first one. And now in this one, how to get the passport. Well, you have to go to the State Department on this one. You have to go through a few other websites. On USA.gov, they have U.S. passports. And they'll probably have the links to the United States State Department. I'd rather be going to the travelstate.gov. That'll give you all the current information that you got. And it's on here as how to tell you how to get the passport and how much you're going to be charged an arm and a leg just to get it. And how you're going to be doing all this process. It takes a while. It also takes money. You get the paperwork printed up, or else you can go to a place that can actually do it. On the State Department website, they're saying that you could find a location to apply in your territory. My location will be a few places in the Antelope Valley on that one. And how much will it cost? Say, for example, you already got the real ID. You already been through your state. You jumped through the legal hoops. You brought in a fresh birth certificate, which costed you money right there in time, because you had to go through either a facility or did it online, and you're really screwed on that one. And if you wanted to get a passport book and a card, or just either, you have ways of applying for it. But there's also a cost on these things. The cheapest way to go through, just for local commuting within the states, or just a little outside of U.S. territory, say Mexico or Canada or the Caribbean, get a card. Now, the card would be like, $30 for a first-time applicant for an adult, $15 for children under the age of 16. Renewal's $30. This is like flashing a regular ID card. But then you're going to be traveling across the waters or further. Then you get the book, you get the official book. $130 for the adults, $100 for children underneath the age of 16. It's 10-year lifespan for adults, 5 years for kids. The cost for renewal is $130 for the adults. I'm not planning on going to another country, but if I did, I would have to be shelling out the extra money, which I don't have. When you're living on a fixed income like I am, and like other Americans, or anybody else for that matter here, it's hard to afford what you need to be eligible for. I'm a U.S. citizen, born, raised in California. And I would have to shell out money and time to get the real ID, but also to get updated paperwork in order to get the real ID. And this would be the poll tax. The SAVE Act that Congress is passing already through the House of Representatives and heading on its way to the Senate is trying to rob, pilfer, pillage, and plunder people's pocketbooks through state and federal fees, but in a way of controlling their access to the voter polls to keep a political power, a political group in power, such as the Republican Party. The Democratic Party would not sponsor at all. We already had voted in, back in '93, a Voter Registration Act to prevent poll taxing of any sort. The poll taxing would be spending money to get updated ID to prevent voter fraud. We haven't had any major voter fraud, yet these people keep batting it off left and right. We have major voting fraud. We have major voting fraud. Don't you understand? They're coming out of the woodworks. Are they? Or is it only your imagination? Or your fear-mongering that you're doing this shit? They did this back in, what was it, 1800s, I think? Hold on a second. I need to do this shit. Yeah. Okay. When work fingers was poll established? Okay. When was the poll tax established? I threw it in there. Britannica? Okay. There we go. Poll tax in English history, a tax of uniform amount of a tax of a uniform amount levied on each individual or head. Of the poll taxes in English history, they're talking about English history at this point, but not about American history. Okay, well, we'll talk about England at this point. In the United States, most discussion of the poll tax was centered on its use as a mechanism of voter suppression directed originally at African Americans, especially in the southern states. The origin of the tax in the United States is associated with the agrarian unrest of the 1880s and 1890s, which culminated in the rise of the Populist Party in the West and in the South. Populist, the low-income farmers' party, gave the Democrats in these areas the only serious competition that they had experienced since the end of the Reconstruction. Intensity competition led both parties to bring blacks back into politics and to compete for their vote. Once the populists had been defeated, Democrats attended their state constitutions or drafted new ones to include various disenfranchising devices. When payment of the poll tax was made a prerequisite of voting, the impoverished blacks and often poor whites, unable to afford the tax, were denied the right to vote. Stipulations that they had. Some states abolished it after World War I, while others retained it. Its use was declared unconstitutional in the federal elections by the 24th Amendment to the Constitution, effective in 1964. In 1966, the Supreme Court, going beyond the 24th Amendment, ruled in Harper versus Virginia Board of Electors that under the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment, states could not levy a poll tax as a prerequisite for voting in state and local elections. But what the SAVE Act is doing in place of the poll tax is requiring additional ID, which means you're spending more money to get that additional ID. You could use a passport, but you also need something else to go along with it. You could use say for example, a Social Security card with a driver's license. But I know in some aspects in California, we had to have a proof of registration, basically proof of where we're living at, proof of residency. And the same thing applied towards the DMV in California. We had to show in something like we were getting something in the mail to prove that we were in residence at this address. This was our home address. Something to corroborate with the ID that we're trying to get. People updating their IDs do the same thing. I mean, you can do it online and click a few boxes, but you're going to the DMV to make the appointment. You have to bring the paperwork and the ID stuff over to them, and they would verify and say, okay, fine, that's acceptable. Thank you very much. Hopefully not give you any too much grief through California. I don't know about any other state, but I'm only dealing with California. But I don't have to pay extra money for it. Well, actually, I do have to pay extra money to get the ID updated. I have to. It's required. So I'll be okay on that one, right? Okay. What if I'm not? I'm not okay with it. What if I'm not okay with all of this? It's just pure meatball, you know? It's just pure meatball. But this is what we're dealing with right now. Trump wants control. The Trumplicans want control over everything, apparently, including your voter data. You're in one particular state and you've been voting one way. They want to know about it. Voting is supposed to be a sacred, sacrosanct thing you cannot screw up. It is a private thing. You go to the polls. You vote in private, secretly. You don't mention it to anybody else. You're making your own your decision. You're not being influenced any other way, according to what's being said. However, that's being changed. Because the Republicans want that change. They want to know how'd you vote. And if you're going to be a threat to them or not. Deny you your power to vote. Despite what the Constitution would say. You would get denied power to vote because of their version of the poll tax. To save the integrity of elections. I ought to fuck with people left and right on this one. But this is what we're facing, guys. We're dealing with a party that wants to control, dominate, and be the Soviet Union. They want to be a copy of Putin's landscape. You think I'm going conspiracy on this damn thing, but I ain't going conspiracy nut job on this damn thing, nor am I doing it QAnon crap at this point. No, because I'm hearing what the conservatives are saying. I'm hearing what the Democrats are saying, and I'm also hearing what the independents are talking about. Yeah, I'm a bit worried myself. This is what's happening to us, guys. That being said,